Hey, is this thing on? Hey, hi, YouTube. Well, end of the world started, but at least the internets are still working for now. So, we're going to talk about a ham radio that I have just acquired. Now, some of the talks we're going to have will be on ham radio, and it will be you can talk around the world on 5 watts or less. But those are different frequencies than we're talking about now. We're talking about a little handy talkie that talks over repeater systems, but it's a unique kind of feature set of these repeater systems that will allow you to talk all around the world. Now, repeaters are something that ham radio operators use a lot, and in fact, they invented this ability to have a small thing that you hold in your hand, being able to talk all the way across town. Normally, you'd only be able to talk to somebody who basically was line of sight. If you could look over there and see them off in the distance, or see the hill they're standing on top of, or the building they're standing on top of, you could talk to them. But you couldn't talk all the way across even a city like Kansas City, let alone a big city like Los Angeles or New York. But ham radio operators came up with a way to have frequencies that would talk to a tower way up tall on a building or a mountain, and then it would repeat that on a different frequency and broadcast it out to everybody. And since everybody could see the top of the mountain or the building, everybody could hear that, even with lower power. And that was kind of the precursor to cell phones. They worked out a lot of the details about that then later on the phone companies turned that into the technology for that thing that you carry around in your pocket and talk on all day and do data. We were doing data across repeaters in the 90s when I first became an amateur radio operator, and that was kind of the precursor of sending data around on cell phones. So, kind of the precursor of data for smartphones, messaging, that kind of thing. And so these are things that build on. This is part of why amateur radio exists, is to experiment with things that can then later be turned into commercial products. I had a boss way back in the 70s who had a car phone. This was back in analog days and was long before anything like a cell phone was possible. This was a box that sat in the back of his car. It was the kind of thing that somebody who had a chauffeur driving you, right, would normally be having a mobile phone at this time. He drove around a Honda Civic, so it sat back in his hatchback area. It was usually something that would mount in the trunk. It was like 3 feet long, 2 feet wide, and a good 6 inches at least high. It was huge, sitting in the back of his car. So he could mobile phone, and he would drive around the customer sites and then transfer the number to the office he was in, so he didn't have to pay as much. So we come a long way, right? Obviously, with cell phones. But if the excrement starts hitting the rotary cooling device, you're not going to be able to make phone calls, because invariably, when things like that happen, one thing you'll hear people say is the cell phones were just unusable. It was constantly a busy signal. Your ham radio repeaters are still going to be up and running. Most all of them are battery backed for a certain amount of time, so the power is out. They'll still operate. And even when they're interconnected, the internet kinds of connections they're using will probably still work. This is a company called TYT, and this happens to be an MD-390. It's a very popular model. It's waterproof. And this one happens to be a MD-390 with GPS built in. Now, what's unique about this compared to a lot of other ham radio handy talkies is it is a digital radio. So when you are connected in with the right set of repeaters, it can broadcast to regular ham radio repeaters that are just local. But when you are hooked into a digital repeater network with this, and it is programmed properly with the right frequencies, you can use this to talk around the entire world, across the entire United States, everywhere in the state where you live, or the state next door to where you live, down to local level. And it's kind of interesting for me because it's a new aspect of radio, so I'm learning a lot of new things. It's, barely inexpensive for, ham radio gear. Not too much you have to invest in it. It's kind of the newest thing on the market. It comes with, of course, this charger that I didn't bring with me, kind of a plug it into the wall and then a little drop in kind of a thing. You see those things there? Those little things fit onto a rail, and then it connects to the charger here, and that's how it charges this battery, which will come off of the back. Very good build, very quality build. Up here, I didn't bring it with me, I haven't put it on yet. It's got a really good belt clip. This whole thing comes off, but the belt clip stays there, so really high quality there. Comes with accessories. I have the little door off for where the accessories plug in. That would include, here's the little door. So it's got a little thumb thing that I can use to take it off, put it on. Some of the accessories that it comes with a little headset and microphone. So that's the one that comes from the factory, that go in my ear, and then I could talk on the radio. I got myself a hand mic as an accessory. Comes with a programming cable, USB, plugs into your computer, and this plugs into the radio. You have to program with this. You can't just poke buttons on this and program the frequencies. It's just way too complicated. So you have to use software. And for those of you who are in the market for something like this, I wanted to mention, I used the software that everybody online said you should use. And I downloaded it and I ran it. And every time I tried to not just load things up to, this device from the computer, but even when I just tried to download from this device into my computer, it kept on giving me model is wrong. And I misconstrued that. I thought it meant that the data model was wrong for the thing I was trying to load, because this thing uses something called a code plug, which is a highfalutin term for a bunch of frequencies all configured the way you want, so you can talk to the local repeater and it can go around the world or across the US or across the entire state or down to your county or things like that. It's a whole bunch of frequencies, and you wouldn't want to try to do it all by hand. So if you're lucky, somebody local has done all that for you, and you just load that into the software, and then it, really quick, using that little USB cable, puts it right down in the radio, and you're ready. But it wouldn't work. It would never work. And I tried this over and over in various ways. And finally it occurred to me, maybe it means it's the model of the radio. This is so new. So I went out to the actual site for the company, okay? And that site of the company has the latest software that's just for the GPS version of this radio. That's what you need. The regular MD-390 will not work with this radio. You have to have the software for the GPS model. And the only place I have found that is on the actual site of the company. So if you search for TYT, it's got 888 in its name. I don't remember it off the top of my head. I'll try to put it in the show notes, right? You need the software for just the GPS. Will not work otherwise. It also comes with two antennas, a shorter antenna that screws right onto here, or a really long antenna that gives you extra power effectively out to hit repeaters if they're farther away. So a lot of nice accessories, all, really everything you need to use the radio, including the software, but it's not the right software for this radio. So the little CD that comes with it doesn't have the right software. Gotta download it, so the internets have to be up and running. And of course, that's how the repeaters repeat all across the entire world or the entire US. I'm looking forward to using this because I've already talked to people down in Florida on this, and I was sitting in Kansas City, downtown Kansas City at lunchtime, and I'm talking to this guy, down in Florida. They have regular kind of ham radio they call it a net, where people get together and practice, where we'll get together and pass messages around and things like that. And they have a USA-wide net, and a guy will check into the net out in California, and then up in New York, and the guy who's running it's down in Tennessee, and some guy in Florida checks in then. So very nice. And little radio that can talk around the world and talk locally. And worst comes to worst, and that connected set of repeaters isn't working, this can talk to local repeaters if they're still running, and it is capable of just talking between people on a local level without a repeater being involved. So, nice thing to happen, or to have, if bad things happen. We'll talk about other radios in the future that are also 5 watts. This is about 5 watts max out, way less than the smallest light bulb you've ever used in your life. But there's other radios we'll talk about later that you can talk around the world, but it's a different frequency than this. This is a frequency that's actually right around in the realm of where the higher channels in your television are. Okay, so a really high, they call ultra high frequency. So it doesn't talk very far, and it does that line of sight thing. You might remember that from the original Independence Day movie. They talked about line of sight, right? So essentially the way line of sight works is it just keeps going straight forever. So it doesn't curve with the Earth, so it just shoots out into space eventually, and it weakens along the way. So my new radio, you might want one, but you need that new software. And for now, that'll be it. And this is MrGadgets, AB0YO, and we'll say 73. And we'll urge you to go out there and do something, to make something, do something. Talk to you next time. Bye.